Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leathercraft, and this is the Leather Element. If you've got a good question for us, or a good idea for a leather element, drop it in the comment box below. Now this week, I'm going to do my best not to roll here because this is a subject that literally has unlimited possibilities, but we don't ever really think about it, okay? So backing up, we did a leather element on making the molds for wet forming, but we didn't do any wet forming. We're going to change that. And if you're new to leather, you're going to be surprised at what you can do with these and a little bit of water, okay? The reason I say I'm going to try not to roll here or start talking real fast is because there's so much to say on wet forming or wet molding. Now, when we think about wet forming, we're thinking maybe a holster, a sheath, or pouch, or maybe a simple pocket. That's just scratching the surface. No limit to the possibility of shapes. In fact, here's a good example. Cool little chevron pouch. In fact, we'll get a better look at that here in just a second. But all manner of shapes are possible. But let's take that a step further, because what we can do is we can drop in a design on top of our mold. In fact, that's just baling wire. But what we can do is get our outline of the mold, but also a very cool impression. Yeah, sky's the limit here. Okay, let's do this. More mold, less talk, all right? But one more quick point, weights. Our lower weights, we're going to be using a natural veg tan. Other leathers will mold some, but not very well. Natural veg tan is going to be beautiful, all right? So 4 to 5 ounce, better ability to get tight corners and edges, but not necessarily the durability. But with a smaller pocket or pouch, no issue there. My point is, when we jump up to an 8 to 9 ounce, now we have less of an ability to mold those corners and edges, but we've got absolute long-term strength and durability, okay? So we need to kind of work somewhere in between the two. I tend to like a 4 to 5, 5 to 6. We're going to use a 5 to 6. So let's step over here, stop talking, and start molding. Let's keep it simple for this. So right off the bat, we talked about our molds, what we can use to make molds, and that's super easy to do. I can use leather. This is just scrap, and I've contact glued these together. That's one heavy mold that's going to last for years. Now, we can use wood. I'm not a woodworker, but an inexpensive jigsaw will make a nice mold, and I can easily sand that down. That's just pine. No real strength needed there. But also, right here for a more complicated shape. In fact, that's the mold for this pouch. Is that not cool? But right there, just leather, and I can actually cut and trim that as much as I want. So easy to make our molds, all right? Let's start right here. We're going to take this, and we'll come over to this very shortly, but I've got just a 4 by 4 inch piece of pine. Let's take our leather, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, and I'm going to drop that in my water, and I'm going to let that soak for about, let's say about 15 or 20 seconds. Let that get good and full of water. All right, got some good time. Now I can feel that. Very pliable. It's got some good weight. It's got some good moisture in it. So let's do this. Let's let it sit here for about 5 minutes and let that water wick through and through. And there we go. Okay, still a little water standing on the surface. That means the leather is solid moisture. That's what we're looking for, very pliable. Okay, so I'm going to take my block. Now I'm going to lay my throat across the top. And I'm going to take my fingers. I'm going to use this portion and this portion of my fingers and my thumbs. And you'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to press down. There we go. And I'm going to use my thumbs across the top to kind of work that corner in. Now, speed not the point here, because this is going to take a little bit of time. So what I want to do is work this around. When I get to my corners, I'm going to do the same thing. Basically, I'm forming, but at the same time, I'm stretching the leather just a little bit too. So I'm going to work this around, come around that other corner. Now, I tend to add round corners on these because a hard square corner, little tough to do. We can do it, and you'll see. But with our fingers, let's just work this down back and forth for about maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Now, as this dries, I'm going to come back over and work it down a little bit more. But let's work this down for a few minutes. All right, so we've been working this really not as long as I said, maybe about 5 minutes. But right there, look at that. We've already got an excellent mold going, okay? 2 points. First off, you notice I'm not using any tools. A bone to me, or an antler, whatever, is going to leave a tool mark, and I don't want that. But a simple round dowel has got no hard edge. So I can always use this to press down into my corners. And again, working around my corners with my dowel, and we're really not going to see any tool marks there. But also, one thing we need to be cautious of, fingernails. My fingernails are pretty trimmed, but look at that. If I press a fingernail into that, it is going to take that and it's going to be totally obvious. Make me crazy. So, with this, what I'm going to do is let this dry. It's going to take probably 4 or 5 hours to dry. About every once in a while, half hour, 45 minutes, I'm going to step over and work this. So therefore, again, speed, not our point. It really isn't because of so much dry time. But really, while it's drying, we'll just work it down a little bit. And that's going to be a beautiful molded pouch. All right, let's set that aside because there's one more way we're going to do this. We're actually going to use a mold. Now, again, square corners. Like I said, a little bit tough. Not bad here. We got a good corner out of that. But with a mold, it's going to make that a little bit easier. So, same thing. Let's drop our leather in and give that just about 30 seconds in the water. All right, good and pliable. Now, with our mold, this is simply scrap wood. In fact, I think these are the risers from a porch railing. And again, right here, it's just our pine. But once we get this formed, what I can do is with my straight edge, trim parallel to the mold, drop in my chisel holes, and that's ready to sew on, okay? So with this, now, I would suggest if we want to do any edge treatment to the throat, we need to do that before we mold. It's kind of tough to do that once we get a good mold going, okay? So with this, I've got up listed simply because I've sanded around this edge, and again, when I drop this in, I'm sanded on my corners. So let's find our top, butt that across, there we go, and let's add a little pressure down here to get this started down into the mold. There we go. And press that in. Feels good thus far. Good. All right. Let's turn this over. Pull that out a little bit. That's good. And now I'm going to use my mallet. Let's hammer this down lightly. There we go. Okay, coming around the other side. Now, we can just leave that flat. We've got ample room to trim for our chisel line. So, what we need to do is let that dry. That's probably going to be maybe 6 or 7 hours. But when we take this out, we are going to have a beautiful, tight mold. In fact, look at it already. Looks pretty good, and we've got some pretty good corners in there as well. So, super easy to do here. There we go. Let's let that dry. Now, again, 6 or 8 hours on this. So, we'll be back in just a bit. Now, I actually gave that some more dry time. We gave it overnight. Again, speed, not our point here. But look how crisp and clean that is. Even our square corners looking good. But let's put this next to the one we did by hand. Looks just as good. Maybe a little bit tighter on our corners, but all told, both look great. Well, we've gone long on another leather element, and we could keep talking. But there are so many creative ways we can go with wet forming. I hope this gives you enough information to get started. Take that ball and run with it, and I hope every molded product you make is gorgeous. Thanks for taking time to watch The Leather Element. Good luck with your projects.